she then spent at the homeless shelter. She'd once joined a group of college girlfriends on a vacation to Cancun. After watching her friends party for 3 straight days, getting puke drunk and not caring which guy ended up in their beds at night, Gwen had vowed never to go on a vacation again with those girls. In fact, she'd become tired of the whole privileged Ivy League college mentality and had dropped out of Stanford and ended up at Pine Valley. Big change. But Gwen had never been happier, or at least mostly happy. Her parents had given up on talking her into returning to school, and their communications had been reduced to letters since she'd told them to never call her. All the letters were from them, though, letters that Gwen didn't open. Marge puttered up the final incline to the lodge, and Gwen coasted into a parking place. The car died without Gwen having to turn off the ignition. That wasn't a good sign, but nothing that hadn't happened previously. By the time Gwen got off her shift later that night, Marge would be cooled off and start up fine. She just didn't like the summer heat. Gwen climbed out of her car, re-tucked in her blouse, and walked across the parking lot. Her usual shift was 5:30 p.m. to closing, but she liked to arrive at 5 to make sure all the tables had been set right. Another car entered the parking lot, its motor an elegant purr compared to Marge. "Oh no," Gwen muttered. "Not him." She picked up her pace to avoid any one-on-one conversation with the driver of the black Mercedes. But she wasn't fast enough. Mainly due to the fact that Seth Owens had a reserved parking space near the top of the lot, so by the time she reached the lodge, his path intercepted hers. "Hi, Gwen." She couldn't pretend she didn't see him. She looked over at Seth, technically her boss, but really he was just a rich kid whose dad owned the lodge. Well, Seth was a man, not a kid, but Gwen had no doubt he'd been the typical frat boy during his college years. Weekend drinking binges, a string of girlfriends, no credit card limit, and Pine Valley was the perfect place for him to keep living out his ski-bum aspirations. Now she eyed Seth. His blonde hair was darker than hers, and his hazel eyes were the kind that even women envied. Gwen suspected he spent his frequent days off golfing or water skiing to keep his torso trim and those shoulders and arms of his well-defined. Not that Gwen wanted to notice these things about her boss, but when you worked with someone on a regular basis, even if that someone only barked orders at you, you started to notice things like how his nails were always trimmed and clean, and how he never shaved on weekends so that by Sunday his scruff made him look even more the ski-bum he was. Today, he wore gray slacks and a pale green button-down shirt with a tie. Gwen may or may not have noticed how his shirt made his eyes look more green than brown. He always dressed professionally at work, but the slight muss of his hair made it obvious that he was one of those guys who only dressed up for his job. Even though Seth's dad had crowned him the manager of the restaurant, Gwen doubted Seth had any real-world work experience. Seth was just good at delegating. Another classic personality trait of the wealthy. Why do something yourself when you can pay someone else to do it for you? "Your name's still Gwen, right?" Seth asked. Gwen realized she hadn't returned his greeting. "Oh, hi. Sorry, long day." He looked her up and down, wearing that crooked smile of his that always made her skin heat whenever it was directed at her. She might hate everything Seth Owens stood for and represented, but she wasn't immune to a good-looking man's appreciation. Not that she ever wanted to mix with his kind again. She'd had her fill growing up among the privileged. "Saving the world again?" he said. His comment hadn't been sarcastic. Or had it? She wasn't quite sure, but just in case, she decided to take him down a notch. She stopped walking and turned toward him, folding her arms. "I sincerely regret ever telling you about my volunteer work. What I do during my off hours is none of your business, and is certainly not up for discussion." His eyes were extra green in the light of the fading day, and at her retort, they widened. "Hey, I didn't mean to offend." She narrowed her gaze. He was so hard to read, but she couldn't tell if he was being serious or teasing. Was there a glimmer of amusement in those baby greens? Typical frat boy. Seth had to know how much he got under her skin, and it was as if his sole purpose at the restaurant was to